FreeWheel is the ad server for Warner Brothers Discovery, Paramount, NBC Universal. In being the ad server, we traditionally have powered a lot of the upfronts via direct IO, the traditional mode of transacting media. In the last few years, a lot of the upfronts have actually migrated into programmatic guaranteed and to some degree biddable. Allocation Module is a new product that FreeWheel's released to try to help the transition into the biddable side of things. So what that means is, you have an upfront budget, it's a fixed budget, but when you're acting in real time and bidding into an ecosystem, you want to have publisher yield teams feel a sense of confidence that that budget is going to deliver in full. And so we utilize Allocation Module to help publishers see the full breadth of that upfront, track it and monitor it, and make sure that they can even potentially communicate the pacing of that upfront to our external DSP partners.
And so is there anything more you can tell us about what it's like to move from insertion order to programmatic? Any friction points or anything along the way, or what can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so programmatic is fantastic from the standpoint that it enables a marketer to look at audiences holistically and manage toward outcomes. We all believe in the promise of programmatic, and certainly biddable is the best way to realize that. One of the challenges that underpins the programmatic ecosystem today in CTV is that inventory that is generally allocated to upfronts is done in a reserved manner at a fixed rate and a fixed volume. So publisher yield teams, rightfully so, like to have predictability in filling all of the impressions they have available. If you introduce a biddable model, you lower the confidence that you're going to actually get every impression delivered in full. And so Allocation Module is trying to get biddable into the same level of predictability for yield teams as those traditional direct IO and programmatic guaranteed ways do. So really that's just about taking a look at, first of all, tracking the upfront within the ad server. That's a new and novel part of Allocation Module to begin with. We just haven't, as an ad server, said, hey, this direct IO, this PG, and this PMP are actually part of an overall upfront. That hasn't existed prior to Allocation Module. And then secondly, what can we do to introduce machine learning to increase the likelihood that the biddable aspect of that can grow and with confidence for a yield team?
And I was hoping you could elaborate a bit more on that, actually. One of the key concerns we hear, from media companies, media owners, and publishers is they want to avoid this race to the bottom that they saw in the digital sphere. What can you tell us about that to allay any concerns there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, programmatic is fantastic in the sense that it allows a marketer to find the valued users that actually are going to push outcomes for their business. So in that case, when they're actually tracking outcomes, they can justify paying higher CPMs. So the more that we can give a marketer the ability to buy a user that they know is going to move the needle for them, the better it's going to be for publisher yield teams as well. So everyone can win in programmatic. It is certainly not, the traditional display-based world where you had, kind of infinite inventory availability. Right. We're talking about a highly scarce, highly tuned in audience. And that's why today still about 70% of the streaming CTV world is still bought through a reservation of some sort. We want to expand that, but doing so in a way that publisher yield teams can see confidence that it's actually going to deliver in full.
Well, Jon, are there any kind of questions that you get most frequently or areas where you find yourself having to educate clients and other people about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one of the main things that we've seen in the upfronts is sort of looking at the role programmatic guaranteed plays. And I want to be clear that, this isn't to undermine the value of programmatic guaranteed. I think it serves a great purpose as an on-ramp for budgets into programmatic. But if you really think about what the promise of programmatic is and allowing an advertiser to find those key audiences, PG just doesn't really fulfill the full promise. And so that's why we want to see more of an enablement of the biddable budgets. And just to be clear, I think one of the questions I get is, isn't biddable already getting access to the full breadth of a publisher's inventory? Yes, they are. But that doesn't mean they have the right to win. So even if they bid and win an auction, when it gets to the ad server, that inventory might already be reserved for an upfront or a direct IO. And that's the bridge that we need to cross. And getting the reservation for biddable in there in the same way for PG and direct IO.
Well, John, this has been really informative. I appreciate your spending the time to tell us more about this stuff. But looking ahead, is there anything that you're most excited about, or anything, or perhaps something that keeps you up at night, or perhaps something that you'd like to see happen in the industry? You got this allocation module in the wild now. What else can you tell us?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the programmatic ecosystem was built on top of display and online video. And in that scenario, you're really talking about a single unit. While it considers the contextual environment of a website, it's not thinking about a commercial break. And so while streaming can run across all platforms, the concept of a commercial break in programmatic is still very novel. We have industry initiatives to help change that, but from a buyer perspective, you have to understand that competitive and repetitive separation, making sure two competitors aren't running next to each other or your same ad isn't running next to each other, that's the value of an ad server in programmatic. And we're really excited about seeing how we can progress our integrations with DSPs to better contemplate all of the ads they have available, and we can diversify the ad break and the commercial break experience for the user.